Hello guys, welcome back to Lex Alexis. Okay, so I've already put my leg on the line trying to predict the championship table, and I'm already making some regretful decisions with some of the calls I made on that table. Now it's time to double the jeopardy and to predict another league. I'm going to predict the Premier League table for what I think will happen in the 25-2026 season. This is something I've also been doing year on year. Last year I didn't do too badly with it, but I think there's so much unpredictability. There was also some massive shocks, and what I can tell you now in advance, I think my table is not going to be necessarily following the same script as most other predictors. So I think this one is going to definitely be a very interesting one. There will certainly be one, if not two predictions I put in there where your mouth will just drop on the floor because you wouldn't believe that I'm being this bold. But I think sometimes you've got to be brave. You've got to be brave. You've got to make things interesting in these table predictions, as the Premier League has been, in my eyes, been getting a little bit more predictable year on year. So I want to mix things up, and I want to see what sort of interesting shouts we can get. And guys, I want you to get involved in predicting the Premier League in the comments down below. I'll be very interested to see what sort of outcomes you've got as well. If you can smash the like button, it really does help the growth of this channel. 50 likes will be absolutely appreciated here. The subscribe again shout out is VES. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Love your profile picture as well, make me feel very nostalgic there. So VES gets the shout out. If you do subscribe to the channel, it is likely that your name will be shouted out in another video. If you guys can also share the channel too, that also really helps. But without any further ado, here we go guys. Let's now reveal my Premier League 1-20 table predictions. Okay, starting things off at the left, we're going to go through the relegated teams first, and it may be predictable, but I am expecting the three teams who did get promoted from the Championship to go straight back down. I'm sorry, for the last two seasons, I've never seen such a disparity of level between the newly promoted teams and the Premier League teams who have had a couple of seasons now to really establish themselves as stable Premier League clubs. And I think that just comes down to the gross financial non-distribution between the top two leagues. Whilst the Championship still gets a lot, there is still like a club that, you know, could benefit of a lot more, like a Sheffield Wednesday, for instance. So I think this is down to the, you know, disgusting amounts of money that we get in the Premier League. For me, my 20th place team is Burnley. Reason is, and honestly, for any of the newly promoted teams, I could justify a reason why they could finish last, but Burnley for me are last because I just don't see where the goals are going to come from, unfortunately. I think they'll be very tough to break down, and I think they will get some draws which will accrue a couple of points on the board. But I'm looking at their squad, and I'm not entirely confident that the forward players that they got are really going to score more than 10 goals in a season, unfortunately. So for me, Burnley are down. They've also got a manager in Scott Parker who I respect as a man and as a Championship coach. I mean, how many other coaches can they say that they got three different Championship clubs to the Premier League for the first time of asking? I mean, that is an incredible feat. But to do that, you also need to be relegated. And Scott Parker has certainly had a pretty torrid time managing in the Premier League. And I think that will, unfortunately, be deja vu. 19th place for me, I'm going for Leeds. I think Leeds will be the team that finishes in 19th place. I think the squad has potential, and I think with the right setup, they could survive in the Premier League. I'm just very unconfident with Daniel Farke, unfortunately. We've seen two previous attempts that Daniel Farke has had to try and keep Norwich up the division. It didn't work, and in fact it failed pretty miserably. Whilst it had some flares of good results there, unfortunately there was no consistency within those teams, and I think that's something we could see Leeds have. They also have a very tough start to the season. If Leeds had a more favourable start to the season, I think Leeds could actually build into the season, but I think if they're going to struggle right from the get-go, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, if they do replace Farke with someone who is experienced in the Prem, like a Steve Cooper, for instance, maybe that might edge me to try and push them up. But for me, as of right now, I've got them in 19th. And 18th place is Sunderland. I'm really struggling with this one, and I can't think of which other newly promoted team they remind me of, but they spent quite big. And when we've seen teams spend quite big when they do get promoted, sometimes it works. You can look at Nottingham Forest as being a brilliant example of that, or it doesn't work, and you could see Ipswich as an example of that, or Fulham from over 7 years ago now doing that exact thing as well. I do like some of the transfers that Sunderland have got. Adingra, I think, is a great signing from Brighton. I, of course, like the Granit Xhaka signing as well. I think he'll be very, very important for that Sunderland squad as well. And I think Sunderland, for me, are the biggest unknown because the majority of those players would not have played a single minute of Premier League football. And the manager as well is someone that I can't really judge at this moment in terms of his level. At least with the other two clubs, we've seen how they can fare in the Premier League. So Sunderland, for me, I think are the most likely team to throw a surprise. But unfortunately, still with, losing the likes of Joe Bellingham, who I know, wasn't the best player all the time for Sunderland, it is still a big presence that they will miss in our midfield role. And unfortunately, I just think the 17 teams above them, when they've had a couple of seasons now in the Premier League, they just set themselves such high standards for the newly promoted sides to try and survive. And unless something really drastic happens to those clubs, I don't think it'll be anywhere close, unfortunately. So for me, the three newly promoted teams are going down, unfortunately. 17th place, I've gone for Brentford. Brentford were a side that I was toying with the idea of putting in my bottom three. I'm not too convinced with the managerial choice. And certainly with the outgoings of Mbeumo, that's going to be a massive go. Norgard's gone as well, who was their captain. Wissa looks like he could be going. So there's certainly lots that Brentford have been picked apart from. And their goalkeeper as well, I didn't even mention that. Flecken, he's also gone. So that's a big part of Brentford's squad. So I do think they will fall 7 places from 10th to 17th. Just with the uncertainty of the manager and their squad being really depleted of its quality. But I think the way that they're set up as a club is really, really smart. They do like to actively replace players that they lose out as well. And they do actually get great return for players that they do sell in the past. So I think Brentford might be okay long term. But this season, if they survive, then they can certainly think ahead long term. But this is certainly going to be one of, if not their biggest challenge since getting newly promoted into the Premier League. 16th place for me is Wolves. In the past couple of seasons, Wolves have been flirting with relegation, and I think it will remain the same for this season. Losing someone like Matheus Cunha, who I know wasn't always an unbelievable player, but he did pop up with some incredible goal contributions for Wolves, which without them, I think Wolves would have certainly struggled. But I think Wolves, what we did see of them last season, they were very streaky, really poor at the start and had a horrendous fixture run. And then whilst Vitor Pereira came in, he managed to get a good streak of wins together. I think, was it 6 wins in a row at one point? And that really propelled Wolves up the table. So I think it's going to be more of that. And I know they have made signings recently, Wolves, to address some defensive positions. Because, of course, they've lost out Nori as well to Manchester City. So certainly Wolves, I don't think, are going to improve per se. But I certainly think they will match their sort of level of performance as of last season. So 15th place for me is West Ham. I don't see them progressing up the table, despite the fact that there has been quite a bit of movement for transfers, but I don't think the transfers they've got in for the most part are particularly long term. I maybe with the exception of a goalkeeper, Hermansen, I think he will be a long-term goalkeeper and will be replacing Fabianski, but if Areola is going to stay in goal, he will only be second choice goalkeeper anyway, so it's not like he's going to make a massive difference to that squad. Callum Wilson has come in, so we've got strikers at the moment for West Ham for Füllkrug and Wilson. For me, that doesn't really give me much inspiration. If it was maybe 5 years ago, I'd be very excited, but now I'm not so sure. They've lost Kudus, not one of their best players, but one decent player in that squad. And For me, I just think West Ham squad is looking very light. I think Graham Potter is certainly trying to work in terms of picking the deadwood out and working with the squad that he likes, but I think it's been so worn out as long as it has done, because we have seen vulnerabilities of West Ham last season. Potter did about enough just to give them a little bit of security regarding their position in the relegation battle, but it's going to be long term, I think, this fix, and Graham Potter will be hoping for some improvement here. Personally, I don't see it at this moment of time. 14th place at the table may shock you a little bit, but I've gone for Fulham. They have been relatively solid, Fulham, since getting newly promoted to the Premier League. I think this might be their lowest finish since getting newly promoted though, 14th, which I got to say, to have that consistency to finish in a comfortable mid-table position is quite sensational, honestly. I really rate Marco Silva as the manager. Their squad for the most part has not changed, and in terms of ingoings and outgoings, they've really made little investment. Now, part of me likes that they have a lot of trust in their squad. However, I think what the transfer window could have been useful for Fulham was to improve their depth, because one thing we did notice was with Fulham, they started very, very well, and then when injuries to key players happened, their form started to deteriorate, and I think they could have used that transfer window more as an opportunity to improve the depth of quality. But I still think whilst the squad has kind of been on a standstill, and I will assume that there will be injuries along the way, I think, you know, going down to 14th will still be a relatively decent season for Fulham. Let me know in the comments down below if there are any Fulham fans watching. Would you take a 14th place finish right now? So 13th place, I've gone for Bournemouth. So a little bit of a drop from their finish last season. It was an amazing top 10 finish from Bournemouth, and to get to, was it the semi-finals or the quarterfinals of the FA Cup? Absolutely unbelievable. But 3 of their back 4 have been taken away. Kirkes is playing for Liverpool, who could face against his former club at the start of the Premier League season. Huijsen has come in for Real Madrid, and then Zabarnel has just recently signed for PSG. Now, I know Bournemouth are actively trying to get players in their defensive roles to cover those gaps, but they're going to need time to gel. I think Bournemouth are going to be the one team that starts relatively slow, but I think when things click and they gel together, I think Bournemouth will be back at their best. And I'm a big fan of their manager as well, Iraola. I think he's a really good fit for the Prem. Coming up next in my table in 12th place, I've gone for Crystal Palace. So I don't see Crystal Palace jumping many places. I don't see them dropping many places. They have got Conference League to deal with, which has been confirmed from the Court of Arbitration of Sport. Whether you agree with that or not, let me know in the comments how you reacted to the news. It is a tough one. It feels really harsh that Crystal Palace have not got this Europa League opportunity. But what I will say, if they could win the Conference League, which I think they could, they will get a chance in that competition. So it's all on the Conference League. I think that will slightly hinder their league form. However, if they could start so much better for last season, I think they will be able to match what the levels that they managed to get from last season. So yeah, I'm predicting pretty much another predictable 12th place finish for Palace, because they've just been proved year on year to be the team finishing in around the mid-table part. Okay, 11th place is when things get a bit controversial. I'm going to look at this over and over again, still in my nose, and thinking to myself, am I really going to say this? I'm going to go for it. I've gone for Spurs in 11th. Now, in context, they finished 17th last season, and they have jumped up 6 places if this does happen. What I will say, that 17th place finish was down, I think, for a bit of tactical naivety from Postecoglou, and with the amount of injuries in that squad. Spurs have improved bits of their squad. I'm still waiting to see a little bit more. That Savino move, a rumour, you know, this could be confirmed by the time this video comes out. I think that will make things quite interesting there. They've lost Son, who certainly would not have been in his best going into this season as well. I think that is a good call to let him go at this stage of his career. I just still think there is still a relatively raw, inexperienced squad, and you've got a manager like Thomas Franklin, who I think tactically will be better than Postecoglou, and I think will get better results. But when you think about Thomas Frank, about the achievements he's made, his highest finish with Brentford would have been around 9th place. So he's a manager that's not actually managed a club to be within the top 7 or 8 yet, at least. And I would argue the quality of Spurs is not as far away from Brentford as we see, because we can see the disparity of their finishing positions from last season. So I think it's going to be a really big challenge for Frank. And with Maddison out for most of the season due to his ACL as well, I just think there's too many exclusions in that squad, which give me the confidence that Spurs are going to get top 7 and they got Champions League. And I think whilst it was an absolute blessing for them to win the Europa League, their first trophy in a long while, I think it's also a curse as well that the clause is that when you win the Europa League, you get Champions League. I really personally think Spurs would have preferred not to have Champions League and just kept the trophy personally, but they've got to go for it. And if they do quite well in it, then I think that will also hinder league form as well. So there's just a couple of factors for me which I would deem as a reason to put Spurs as low down as 11th. I mean, do I see anyone else doing that? Maybe the odd couple, but I'm going to wave a flag of Spurs again finishing below the top 10. Controversial, isn't it? Let me know what you think of that in the comments. We've now made it to the top 10, where things I think will be a little bit more predictable. 10th place, I've gone for Brighton. I think still with Brighton losing some players, Joao Pedro most recently to Chelsea, there's Adingra as well, who's gone to Sunderland, and then there's rumours about Balbeda potentially going to Manchester United. So there certainly could be a still big part of that squad being trimmed away. But again, with Brighton, very clever with their recruitment, and I think there is still a really talented squad there with still many options. You've still got Welbeck, you've still got a young player like Rutter as well, who could go up there as well. So I still think, based on the options available, I think Brighton will still have the technical ability to finish 10th. 9th place to me is Everton. Now, they are the big jumper in terms of the teams that finished in their respective positions last season. This, for me, is a bit of a wild card, but I can see Everton doing some really good things this year, and a lot of creators are thinking the same. There's a new stadium, which I think it will have a struggle period for Everton, but it will also have a struggle period for the other clubs because they've never played in that stadium before, of course. And I think if Everton can eventually turn a new stadium into a fortress, it could even make away games for fans against Everton even more daunting than what they normally are. So I sense that could work, and I like their transfers as well. Dewsbury Hall and Jack Grealish are two brilliant signings for Everton. So, I don't care if it's David Moyes managing. I just think the quality of that squad is good enough to get top 10 if they're just consistent enough. And David Moyes proved for when he did take over from Sean Dyche, he was starting to get some really good consistency down with this side. So I was really, really encouraged to see the results that we were getting. So I think 9th place is a fair prediction. 8th place for me, Nottingham Forest. I think Europa League will hinder their position a little bit. Many other creators are predicting them an even sharper drop from where they finished. I got them to finish 1 place lower. I still think the core amount of their squad is still very strong. Yes, they've lost Elanga, that's a bit of a blow. But I still think with Europa League competition, I think they will still actively recruit for players as well. So, and the fact that they kept Gibbs White, game changing. If they lost Gibbs White, I probably would have put Forest in around 14th, 15th place. So there's still lots to like about this Forest squad. I think they will improve to their squad. So for me, I think they still justify an 8th place finish. 7th place, so this is going to be the qualification for Europe places now. I've gone for Newcastle 7th. And Newcastle's been such a difficult one for me to put my finger on. But right now, I think they feel so dejected at the moment with the whole Alexander Isak situation. And that could certainly make things a little bit toxic in the changing room if Eddie Howe doesn't approach it the right way. Newcastle also got the chance of Champions League again as well. So I think likewise with Spurs, there's just so many mitigating factors, which is limiting me for Newcastle to finish any higher. They recently just signed someone from AC Milan, actually, a defender. So I'm glad that they're trying to improve their defensive options there, which I think defensively, Newcastle have been relatively solid for the most part. It's just this transition and just having someone who can supply for strikers. And I think Elanga will be a good signing, and I think will be great for that right-hand side. But yeah, still, I think with the challenge of Champions League, the likelihood of some players getting injured, and then just with the chaos, I think they'll finish 7th. 6th place, I'm going for Manchester United. I don't think they'll get top 5, even though with no European football. I still think there's still quite a bit to go before we do see Manchester United getting some consistency again. But I like their transfers. I do like Cunha, I do like Mbeumo, and I do like Benjamin Sesko as well. I think those 3 transfers are very good, savvy transfers for Manchester United. As long as they keep their egos in check, I think they will benefit Manchester United for the positive as well. Very attack-minded players, where goals was a major problem for Manchester United last season. So I'm glad they did approach for that, and I think that is certainly going to allow them to jump up the table. They don't have European competitions to worry about, so I could see a sharp improvement. But again, I'm still a little bit unconvinced with the whole mould of Ruben Amorim taking over Manchester United. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But I feel if things click, it could look absolutely amazing. So I'm going to go for 6th for Manchester United. Top 5, I'm going to go for Aston Villa in 5th place. I'm a big fan of Unai Emery. I think he's a very underrated manager. And I feel like with Aston Villa's squad, it's a very deep and squad, so I think it will help with the congestion of Europa League and the Premier League, which I think in Europa League they'll go quite far in, because of course it is the master of Europa League, Unai Emery, managing Aston Villa after all. So there is maybe concerns that there could be some key injuries to key players, and balancing Europa League and the Premier League can make things tough. But they have shown in the past, Aston Villa, that when they've had to balance Champions League, they've actually done a good job to still cope with the Premier League intensity and the Champions League. So I still think that they are going to be able to balance the both. So I've got Aston Villa in 5th. Now, top 4. Everyone's got like the same 4 teams in the top 4, but probably in different order. For me, despite being a Chelsea fan, I think we'll finish 4th. I really like the attacking signings of Esteval. I like Delap, and I especially love Joao Pedro. He has shown in his preseason he's going to be a very important player. And then even with other players, Gittins I think will be interesting. I still would like potentially a new goalkeeper and a centre-back, following the fact that Levi Colwill has just done his ACL. So I do think there's still work to do. But as long as Chelsea do not go into many games unprepared and not knowing what to do with the ball, we could start seeing Chelsea being a contender for the title, which would be really, really exciting. Okay, so top 3. Oh, this is tough this year. Very, very tough to call. Lots of people have got Man City finishing 3rd. I disagree. I actually think the favourites for most people to win the league is Arsenal. But I've got them in 3rd. There's so much pressure on Gyökeres to be the main striker. And I think he will get goals. I think he'll get at least 15 goals, you'd think. But there's still the difficulty of balancing competitions, which Arsenal, in the most part, couldn't really do that well. If they were to prioritise one competition, it would hinder over the other one. I like the transfer of Zubimendi. I think that's a strong signing from them as well. Not many transfers, but I think they will be transfers that will ultimately improve the quality of the starting 11. I just have doubts whether if Mikel Arteta is going to be the manager to get the best out of his club week in, week out. We have seen hand in hand that Arne Slot and Pep Guardiola can lead a team to win the title. Whilst also I think have got the squad to win the title, I just don't know if Arteta is going to have the ability to dig deep and to get this Arsenal side to be ruthlessly consistent to win. So whilst I still think they will get over 80 points, I think they'll only finish 3rd. So top 2, it is between Manchester City and Liverpool, and I'm being very brave. I've actually got Man City as my winners. Liverpool are 2nd. according to my prediction, I love their transfer business. I am a big fan of Ekitike. Frimpong coming in, great signing as well, who can definitely deputise in a position of Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving. Kirkes coming in will be a good transfer to deputise with Andy Robertson not being the youngest of players anymore now. There is still so much to like. And then Florian Wirtz as well, as a midfielder as well. So they have definitely strengthened in most positions on the pitch. However, based on recent watches of Liverpool, what I can sense is they've got a mixture of old and experienced defenders. And I feel like at the moment, the older experienced defenders are just not being quick enough against, you know, players that you could still see on a game-by-game basis, like an Ismaila Sarr or Jean-Philippe Mateta as well. You got to remember that the Premier League, whilst it's physical, there will be some squads that will contain players that will be incredibly pacey and quick, and if you're not the youngest of defenders anymore and you're not as quick as you used to be, that can make things really, really difficult to defend. And I think Liverpool have just not struck that perfect defence balance. If they looked a lot better defending wise in their previous couple of games, I probably would back Liverpool. But again, to be a little bit more interested, because not many people are predicting Man City to win the league, I'll say that they will. I think still Pep Guardiola has done it many times before. He'll know exactly what his team needs to do it. And typically when they do have a one-season blip, they bounce back in a big way. And in terms of transfers going through, of course, De Bruyne's no longer in the squad. But I think Reinders from AC Milan is a good centre midfield option in that position. And I do like the acquisition of Cherki as well. I don't think he'll be necessarily put into the squad straight away, but I think he will be good eventually. And Out Nori, if you know, in the left hand side as well. So I'm a big fan of the transfers. If Haaland and Mamouche stay fit, I think they'll have a lot of fun trying to race for the Golden Boot together. Defending wise, I think still their centre backs are strong, but they could potentially be got at if they're not set up properly as well. I mean, it is a bit of a risk. I understand that people are saying that the Man City, you know, sort of dominance is dying a little bit, but I don't think we could conclude that after one season of Man City not winning. For me, they've just got the ability to pull off an incredible run of form. It's just a question, can Liverpool and Arsenal do the same? Whilst they could, I'm just not as confident in them as I am with Man City. So my pick to win the Premier League, as boring as it sounds, it's Man City. So guys, that was my attempt to predict the Premier League 25-26 season. How did you think I did? Let me know in the comments. What was my most shocking prediction? What was my most predictable prediction? Which teams am I going to get right and wrong? Let me know in the comments, and I'll love you guys to be involved in your whole tables as well. Could be something we could react to later in another video. So I think that wraps it up for today. Please like, share and subscribe. It really does help the growth of this channel. Coming up in the channel, more week 2 score predictions. So I'll be predicting the championship, and it will be part 2 of the Let's Let's Football Prediction League for the 25-26 season. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary for this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.